Discover the world of the Pagoda People, where tents became timeless houses, and roofs curved like flowers to withstand wind and rain. From China's towering porcelain pagodas to Japan's earthquake-ready wooden homes, this story reveals how tradition, belief, and resilience shaped architecture unlike any other. Learn how feng shui guided builders, why timbers were tied instead of nailed, and how beauty was found even in the simplest materials. If you enjoy exploring history, culture, and design, this video is for you. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more journeys into the past.
How did they build to survive everything the climate, the gods, and the earth itself can throw at them?
It's a really remarkable study in contrasting constraints. I mean, when we look at these structures today, we see tradition, we see beauty.
Of course. But
our sources really pull back the curtain and show us that every single choice, from the materials they use to the curve of a roof, was an engineering solution to an existential problem.
So our mission here is to uncover those foundational design rules. We want to understand the surprising cultural nuggets that just sort of sprung up because of these rules, particularly how China's obsession with, say, permanence clashes, structurally speaking, with Japan's need for constant, deliberate flexibility.
And if we're starting in China, we have to establish the central rule that dictated everything. I mean, from city planning to house posts.
Okay.
The rule of building, and it's almost philosophical, was do everything in the way you always have, and when you have done it, then do it again.
That sounds incredibly restrictive.
It is.
But I guess it explains why architectural fashions in China barely changed for millennia. That tradition was the baseline.
Exactly.
So let's talk about the original environmental constraints then. Massive, persistent rain, these catastrophic floods, and the typhoon, the big wind.
The typhoon.
Yeah. And that's where the spiritual and the structural, they just collide. Architecture in China was so heavily influenced by the belief in local earth gods, the feng shui.
Right.
And if these gods were displeased, they'd punish you with famine or flood or wind. To build correctly was to honor the feng shui. To disturb the earth
was to invite disaster.
Exactly. And this is where it gets really significant for us today. This ancient theological constraint. It caused long-term, powerful opposition to any kind of modern infrastructure that involved digging.
Right, like mining.
Or railways.
Especially railways. That friction between progress and tradition, it lasted for centuries.
So laying down a railroad track meant disturbing the resting place of the earth gods.
Yes, and in the minds of the people, the societal cost just outweighed any economic benefit. I mean, you're literally risking the stability of your entire community because you've upset the feng shui.
So early architecture was really just about survival under these conditions. Our sources trace it back to these peaceable tent-dwelling migrants settling near the Yellow Sea. They even have these creation legends about water.
Yeah. The source mentions a story where it rained for 11 years straight.
11 years.
Until the first emperor figured out how to drain the deluge.
So the challenge was, how do you go from a collapsible tent to a permanent structure that can handle these constant downpours?
And that question gives us the iconic, distinctive Chinese roof, that sweeping, slightly tilted profile.
It looks so ornate, but the sources are clear that the shape is purely functional.
Completely functional.
It's all about solving the tent problem. If water just sits on a flat roof during a monsoon, the weight is just going to crush it.
Exactly. You need a steep slope to shed all that heavy rain, think of like the peaked pole of a really sturdy tent.
Yeah.
But the genius is in the secondary purpose. They curve the edge upward, just slightly.
Which you'd think would let water spill everywhere.
You would think that, but it was the opposite.
They basically engineered it to act like a giant, beautiful gutter.
Precisely. That upward curve collected and directed the runoff, allowing them to fill their cisterns, manage their water supply.
Which was critical.
Absolutely critical. They wove that necessity right into the fundamental look of the building.
And the construction itself was incredibly resourceful. China isn't a well-wooded country, right?
Right. So large, squared timbers weren't always around. They had to rely on whatever the largest available timbers were, often greenwood, for posts and rafters.
And just fill in the space with mud or brick.
And that scarcity leads to one of the biggest aha moments in the material for me. The tying trick.
The tying trick.
Yeah, we think of iron nails as the, peak of secure construction.
Right.
But the early Chinese They often avoided nailing timbers together. They lashed them with ropes made of tough grass or vines.
But why? I mean, they had iron forging, didn't they?
Yeah.
Why was this old, simple technique better than iron nails in this specific context?
It's a brilliant piece of structural engineering, really. It's based on material science. When you use green or damp wood,
It shrinks as it dries.
it shrinks a lot. So if you drive a rigid iron nail into that shrinking wood, the structure loosens up, it starts to wobble, and you lose stability.
The rope.
The rope, as it dries out, it naturally shrinks and tightens. It compresses the joints. So as the structure settles and the wood shrinks, the lashing system actually makes the whole framework firmer. They built movement into their joinery because they knew their materials were imperfect.
That's incredible foresight.
Mm.
So moving on, once they'd solved the weather problem, the goal became permanence.
Simple as that.
Chinese structures were built to stay, reflecting that tradition of, not changing what works. But they created huge scale without changing their basic house design.
And this is a key difference from the West. They didn't just build one massive fortress or cathedral. They scaled up in two main ways.
First, the pagoda.
A pagoda isn't really a new type of building. It's just an application of the same basic house template, a quaint, longer-than-wide house,
Right.
built as large as possible with progressively smaller versions stacked on top. The sources say usually 7, 9, or 11 stories. It's monumental, yes, but structurally it's just a stack of houses.
And when you stack them and decorate them, the result is staggering. I'm thinking of the famous porcelain tower at Nanking.
200 feet high.
Built of brick, covered in colored porcelain tiles. But it wasn't just the height, it was the sensory experience. It had 150 little bells.
And housed over 2,000 statues. That is monumentality through repetition and ornamentation.
Okay, and the second way they scaled up.
The palace. Now, unlike a Western palace, which is a single building meant to dominate the landscape,
Right.
a Chinese palace was a group of houses set strategically inside a garden. The permanence was in the collective, the layout, not in one immense stone shell.
And because their architectural styles didn't change, they channeled all that artistic energy into extreme ornamentation.
The justification being, if something is beautiful and suitable now, it's going to be beautiful and satisfactory forever.
No need for new styles, just perfect execution of the old one.
You see this in the astonishing level of detail they applied to even the most mundane things. The source mentions a long-handled dipper beside a fountain.
Okay.
It wasn't just metal. It was covered with a shining mosaic of hundreds of tiny bits of mother of pearl, no bigger than grains of wheat.
Wow. That commitment to beauty on just a common tool is incredible.
Unlimited patience.
Okay, so that gives us a clear picture of China. Tradition, permanence, genius engineering, and decorated stability. Now let's shift sharply across the sea to Japan.
A totally different world.
The architectural constraint was entirely different and way more immediate.
In Japan, the single factor determining every architectural choice was the frequency of earthquakes.
You really can't overstate this. Our sources note the severity. As many as 87 shocks, mostly light, felt in a single day.
A single day. You're building in a country that is literally never still.
This just forces a complete rethink of structural physics. You can't build like the Romans or the Egyptians.
No way. As the sources remind us, you couldn't have built a pyramid in an earthquake country. It would just crumble.
So while China favored brick and heavy stone for permanence, the Japanese had to commit entirely to wood.
And that's the essential difference, right? Rigidity versus elasticity.
Elasticity is key. What's happening structurally to that wood when an earthquake hits that lets it give without just snapping?
Think of it like a finely tuned ship hitting a wave.
Yeah.
Wood is naturally elastic, and a structure built with flexible joints can quiver, sway, and absorb that kinetic energy.
So the building moves with the earth.
It moves with the earth and then settles back into place. A rigid brick house, on the other hand, resists that energy until it shatters. It just falls flat.
So their architecture adopted the general shape of the Chinese house, but then they had to do this great discard.
Right. They had to get rid of anything that would injure people during a tremor or, and this is key, cause a catastrophic secondary disaster.
Fire.
Almost always fire.
The list of what they discarded is profound because it shows just how much necessity dictates culture.
It really does. Out went glass windows, out went central chimneys, heavy furniture. But the biggest discard was the traditional kitchen range or stove for heating.
Because if an earthquake upsets hot coals,
A wooden village becomes a massive conflagration instantly.
and that is a huge cultural shift compared to homes where the hearth is the literal center of the family.
It completely reshaped the home. Instead of a central hearth, they used the hibachi.
The dainty little portable stove.
Right, a charcoal stove only lit when you're cooking and you're always attending to it. And rice, the staple, was cooked on a cheap earthen stove in a separate outbuilding far away from the main living space.
So at the first sign of a tremor, you douse the fire and get out.
Safety was everything,
Yeah.
even at the expense of that communal warmth.
And the interiors had to reflect this, too. No solid load-bearing walls that could crash down.
The partitions are just paper-covered, movable screens, so you can combine two rooms into one instantly. It gives you structural lightness and functional adaptability.
And life is lived on the floor.
Entirely on the floor.
Mhm.
Light, low tables, thick straw mattings. There's nothing heavy to move or to fall on you.
This changes the focal point of the home, then. If there's no central hearth, what takes its place?
The toko. It's a recess in the wall where a single treasured ornament is displayed on a polished wooden platform.
The aesthetic center of the home.
Exactly. It's the spiritual and aesthetic center. The honored guest is invited to sit near it. It is the elevation of artistic appreciation over, thermal comfort.
And this gets us to Japan's incredible artistic contribution. This idea that profound beauty doesn't depend on expensive, permanent materials.
Yes. Proportions and outlines can make cheap things beautiful. This is the mastery of line.
The source has that fantastic example of the float for a pageant, the one representing a waterfall.
It looked incredibly realistic, shimmering. But the material wasn't expensive silk or metal.
No.
It was cheap fabric covered with metal rubbish bits left over from cutting tin cans. The entire effect was achieved through arrangement and light.
Or that anecdote from Lafcadio O'Hearn about the garden.
Oh, yeah.
The willingness to spend huge amounts of time, money, and labor just to move a plain, undecorated boulder to one specific spot.
Just to get the artistic effect right. The stone itself isn't beautiful, but its placement, its line, its relation to everything around it that transforms it into art.
Even their necessary structural fixes became part of this aesthetic.
You mean how they protected the wood?
Exactly.
Right, they needed metal sheathing to protect the ends of wood beams from dampness and insects. A plain bronze cap would have worked.
But that's not what they did.
No. The artistic metalworkers shaped that sheathing into these carefully designed ornaments. We're talking about nail heads shaped like tiny bronze-winged insects. Functional protection becomes seamless aesthetic.
And their decorative rules insisted on subtle variation. The rule was that nothing is exactly duplicated.
Which requires incredible skill. If they're decorating a screen with a motif, say a pair of leaflets, no two pairs are ever exactly alike. The light and dark leaves will be reversed. They hate sameness.
The source even notes that sameness only occurs in items made to sell to foreigners.
Right, for people who don't understand the underlying artistic principle.
And finally, that brings us to the torii, that distinctive structure. 2 tall posts with a curved crossbar.
Originally a bird perch from Korea.
It's often used to mark a sacred place, but also, and this is the key artistic insight, to frame a landscape view.
And if you look at a lovely landscape through this frame, it suddenly acquires this unique charm that the open, unframed scene just lacks.
That's the wizard beauty.
That's it. It's this unerring use of line and proportion, showing that defining a boundary can actually enhance the beauty within it.
So to synthesize all this, we see this really dramatic divergence. China is all about tradition, permanence, rigid structure built to resist wind and water.
The ultimate goal was to remain unmoving. And they used that engineering ingenuity, like the tying trick, to get stable longevity with imperfect materials.
And Japan focuses on elasticity, safety, and this aesthetic beauty born from geological necessity.
Their ultimate goal was constant flexibility. It demanded a lighter life, an architecture that could sway with the constant movement of the earth. They took the same basic house shape, but engineered it for completely opposite ends of the structural spectrum.
It's such a powerful lesson in how constraints don't stifle creativity.
No, they just redefine its parameters. The necessary discards in Japan, getting rid of the heavy hearth, using light screens, that created a unique, flexible, and aesthetically refined culture devoted to line and proportion.
Which brings us back to the torii, that beautiful frame placed over a perfect natural landscape, a structure built just to enhance perception. So for you listening, how might your own perspective or your appreciation of daily life change if you consciously decided to frame the view? What happens when you intentionally define a boundary around a moment or a scene? Does that act of framing enhance the beauty of what's inside it? just as that unerring use of line enhanced the Japanese view. That's something to mull over until our next deep dive.
Thank you for joining us on this journey into the world of the Pagoda People, where tradition, belief, and resilience shaped architecture that still inspires awe today. From the curved roofs of China to the graceful wooden temples of Japan, we've seen how culture and environment created designs unlike any other. If you enjoyed exploring these stories of history and design, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us bring more fascinating journeys into the past, culture, and art. Until next time, keep discovering the beauty of the world around us.